Are you an immigrant looking for a better recipe for living your ultimate American dream journey? Did you come to America to escape persecution? Or as a tourist, a student, for employment, and found America a welcoming place? Or did you make a conscious decision to relocate for a new experience and opportunities? Whatever the case, you have a story. Are you ready to tell yours and have it recorded in the pages of history for your posterity and the world? Was your decision to live in America the best decision you've ever made? These stories and more on this podcast dedicated to you, the modern explorers to America. We feature amazing Nadvigators weekly to share their story, their journey, their challenges and successes, with one goal of helping you to fast track and live your best American dream journey. So what's your navigating story? And now, here is your host, Bassie Simon, with this episode's featured guest, ready to tell their navigating story.
Hello, Nadvigators. Welcome to another episode of the Nadvigators podcast. In today's episode, I am honored to bring you another unique navigating story. But before I do that, let me remind you that the Nadvigators podcast is the first podcast and platform dedicated to sharing inspiring stories of immigrants, the modern explorers to America, about their journey, their experience, to inspire you to find your own path to success. The Nadvigators podcast is for immigrants. I can attest to you as an immigrant to the power of motivation and mentoring. It could be very hard on people who are here without family or friends to fully adjust to their new environment. Before I left for my own journey to America 23 years ago, I benefited from a valuable mentoring from a friend who taught me surviving skills that I needed to know about America. Very simple things like, what is credit? What does it mean? Or what do I need to get into my first apartment? Etc., etc. And I can attribute most of the things I have done to that mentorship. This is why I am so motivated to start a platform like this one, where everyone may also receive a similar mentoring and guidance. As you know, everyone's navigating story is uniquely different. And today, I am so excited to bring you another amazing guest, a friend and a mentor to tell his navigating story. Nadvigators, our guest today is Dr. William Undie. Dr. William Undie is a professor of radiation oncology physics with a top-tier American university in Texas. Dr. Undie earned his doctorate in educational administrative leadership and supervision in 1999 from Clark Atlanta University, Atlanta, Georgia. He also previously earned a Master of Science in Education and an MBA in Management and Finance from Texas A&M University in Corpus Christi, Texas in 1986 and 1985 respectively. Previously, he earned a Bachelor of Science in Criminology in 1992 from Wayne State University, Detroit, Michigan. From 2011 to present day, Dr. Undie has been a representative to Radiological Society of North America, RSNA. So, all of these achievements started when you arrived in the United States at a very young age, about 20 to 21 years of age, and before you arrived, you had completed high school back in your country, Nigeria, and worked for a few years, and then you decided to go out to a new world and have a new beginning. Now, Dr. Undie, take the Nadvigators through your navigating journey from Nigeria to America in your own words. Perhaps the audience will learn additional interesting facts from your already fascinating profile, while you're also filling in any gaps that I left off. Dr. Undie, it's an honor to have you on the program today. Dr. Undie, welcome to the Nadvigators podcast. Are you ready to inspire fellow navigators through your own navigating story?
All right, thank you, Bass. It's a joy to be here to share my story. I have a very interesting story. And I think one advice that I can give to a parent is don't send your child to America when they are very, very young, because they're going to make a whole lot of mistakes. I did make a whole lot of mistakes when I came. I came 21. When I finished high school, because of my academic performance in the West African exam, I had a federal scholarship. So I came here with a federal scholarship quite early to study industrial economics. So when I came, of course, after my first year or two, I said, well, what exactly am I going to do with industrial economics? And so you can use economics, but again, there weren't really many opportunities to actually have industrial economics. But I went ahead and finished my school. I mean, my first 2 years at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. So when I finished the first 2 years, then I transferred to Wayne State University, where I went ahead and earned a bachelor's degree. So when I earned my bachelor's degree, I wanted to now go into law school. So that is why I switched into criminology. So when I got through, I had to go back to Nigeria to fulfill my responsibility for the scholarship. So that's why I went back. So when I got back, then I decided to switch careers.
Wow. I am thrilled about this information because I had no idea, because I'm reading your profile in many places and I see this radiology, radio-oncology, and physics, and I had no idea you had something to do with criminology. I put those two together. That's really interesting.
Yes. That was my first initial career pathway. Again, that was part of the futility in decision making that I think as a young person without any guidance, you are bound to actually run into those things. And that's what I did. And it was a learning experience for all of those things. But I think eventually when I finally found my stability, direction which I wanted to go, I think things became fairly stabilized, after that. Again, at that very age, you didn't really have quite a whole lot of mentors. You're talking in terms of the early 80s. So you didn't really have quite a whole lot of mentors, and you have to try and navigate things on your own.
Wow. That is something. So let's go back. So you came here with a federal government scholarship from Nigeria.
Correct.
And that must have been, I can imagine you arrived at that age and you landed. So take me through that time when you got here. Let the audience know about what kind of challenges that you had to go through, because you said something initially about don't send a young man without any sort of direction on where to go and who to meet here. So, right. Tell us of some of the challenges that you ran into, and if you may, you can expand as wide as you want and as narrow as you want. But let's hear that part of your story. How did you arrive here at 21 and you stayed focused despite all the challenges that when people arrive here they have to deal with? Especially thinking through this, I'm imagining that at that point, at that time in American society, there must have still been a little bit of situation of leftover, maybe things related to people looking at people that looks like you differently, and more so coming from Africa. And I think you had slew of challenges. So let's hear some of those and how you actually overcame all of them.
Okay, absolutely. When I came here, as a federal government scholar, our port of entry was in Washington, D.C., because we had to report to the embassy. Then the embassy actually will sponsor your trip from there to no matter where you're going. So when I came, I arrived in Washington, D.C. Then from there, I got my flight ticket from Washington, D.C. to Wisconsin. So I arrived at Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is about an hour or so from Madison. Then I had to take a bus from Milwaukee to Madison. I think what happened was the University of Wisconsin in Madison had an international students department. So they actually sent someone from the school to come and pick me up from Milwaukee. So we went through by bus. Again, to be honest with you, I didn't know there were so many Black Americans. Because that was my first time of traveling outside Nigeria.
Wow.
So when I arrived in Milwaukee, then the bus terminal, of course, then I realized here in the US, people that don't really have money, those were most of the people that actually rode the bus.
Right.
I arrived at the Greyhound, the bus station. I saw a whole lot of Black Americans. That was the first time I've seen a whole lot of Black Americans. Then from there, we took the bus down to Madison. Madison was predominantly, Caucasian. White people, really,
Mm-hmm.
So I arrived. It was very cold. It was in the fall, around August, very cold. So I had to get adjusted to that. I had to, buy some warm clothing and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was checked into a dormitory. When I checked into a dormitory, my roommate was actually a white American. So I have to learn to adjust with them. So it was difficult. Again, for one thing, you were missing home. You have left some friends, at that age.
Yeah.
Some friends you have left behind. You were already missing them. You were actually missing, your family. And the only way you could communicate back with home at that time was writing letters. And it took almost 3 weeks for you to get any kind of feedback, from someone over there. So all of this while you were eager to make friends and everything. So it was difficult trying to, get adjusted, combined with with the cold weather, really.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wisconsin, that's a deep, that's a really cold area, and you just came from a tropical area and got thrown there, right?
Yes. So,
did you know about how cold the place is? How much preparation did you have?
No, never had any preparation. The only preparation I had was when I arrived in Washington, D.C. And they told me, hey, listen, you are going to a very cold place. Okay. But fortunately, as a federal government scholar, we had money. The government took care of us. So it's just a matter of spending money to get just what you need, really. Yeah.
So the idea of leaving your family back, when you came, your plan wasn't to stay back in America. You just came here to go to school and went back to, to work in Nigeria. I think at that time, it looks like Nigeria was pretty good, in good shape. And most people came here and just finished their college and went back. So how did you transition from coming as a scholar and then staying here as a resident? How did you transition between those two? You
mean after I came back from Nigeria the second time?
I'm sure the first time you came, you went back, and then what prompted you to come back on your own?
Well, I wanted to come back because I wanted to go ahead and do a master's degree. When I got back, I realized, yes, I had the fundamental career prospects, but I think I felt I needed at least to go a little bit further in my educational pursuit to be able to try and sustain myself. And that is why I came back with the intent of going in for a master's degree, which I did.
Okay.
But, on coming back, I was now on my own. And I think that's when I realized how difficult America was.
Aha.
Yeah, because during the first 4 years, every month you were given money. So you had money. Money wasn't an issue at all. But when I came back, I was now on my own. I had to fend for myself. So that's when I had to work in a restaurant as a dishwasher. Then after that, I had to work as a security guard. Then in the summer, I was helping out with construction. Then eventually, I was able to work myself where I actually had like graduate assistantship. So now I can actually work as a teaching assistant in a graduate school while I was going to school. So life was rough the second time around.
Well, that's like a theme that is crossing different interviews that we've had so far, because it looks like sometimes when people see successes in America, a lot of times it looks like people just feel like it just happened overnight. So when you came, you had to work in restaurant as a dishwasher, you had to work as a security guard and work in construction site. Who would have thought that? Did you ever think that you would be doing that when you came back?
Never at all. Because I thought when I got back, I was going to go ahead and get some kind of assistant. But again, keep in mind that when I came back, I was still a foreign student. Even the first 4 years, I was still a foreign student. When I get back, I was still a foreign student.
Right.
So trying to get any kind of assistantship was quite difficult.
It must have been very expensive, that part of your journey, because the first time around, it was great. I mean, you had all this full ride scholarship, and then you came back, and then you now embrace this shock that dealt with you. So what were the things that you did? I mean, beside the fact that you knew why you were here, why you came, what were some of the things that really motivated you when you were working in those environments? And what were some of those things that really kick you and said, okay, I don't think this is what I came here to do. I need to do something better than that, right?
Well, Basi, as the eldest of 6 children, from my culture, which I think you part of that culture,
right?
There's quite a lot of responsibility that you have to assume. Failure is not an option. You have to find every way to be able to be a role model to be successful. So to me, that was one of the motivating elements, that made me to endure all type of hardship to be able to be successful.
Right.
So when I got through at A&M, got my graduate degree, I went back to Georgia to work for a publishing company. So I had my MBA. My emphasis was in finance. So I became the financial analyst for the company. So of course, in the early 90s, that's when the economy was actually going through some upheaval here in the U.S.
Right.
So I was laid off. So at that time, already had my wife here and had my first child. How are you going to survive? That is how I transitioned to the medical area. When I transitioned to medical area at Emory, so that's where I did my postgraduate work at Emory with specialization in radiation oncology physics. So that's how I got into healthcare, and ultimately went on, to work at Emory for about 15 years in the School of Medicine. So I was with the faculty at Emory. I also was working, as the physicist in the Department of, oncology, treating cancer patients, So that's I got to be where I am right now.
Wow.
So from Emory, then a position became available here in Texas. So that's how I transitioned to my current job right now in Texas.
Wow. Now, that's something intriguing right there, because you are talking about a very opposite side of the pole, because you were more of a business before and then you transitioned to medical.
Yeah.
Now, I can't even fathom that, because only certain people can do that. So I'm very honored that I'm talking to you, because this is one of those moments where you're like, wow. So are you telling us right now that, as somebody who have done this and who have seen the benefit of it, are you telling the Nadvigators right now listening to you that it is possible to make a change to your career path if one seems to lead somewhere? So could you give us a piece of a strategic, timely information and advice that how people might be able to do that and think about that? How did you achieve that?
Absolutely. I will always encourage everyone not to lose sight of the fact that we are all capable of doing something if you put your mind to it.
Right.
I think I'm one of the few people here, at least in my organization, that has benefited from having a very broad background. So I have a business background and I have a clinically based background. So when you combine those two, not very many clinicians have that.
I know.
So that has given me so much opportunity where I am that they actually come to me for certain business type, related, advice. So I'm able to at least leverage that with where I am right now. So I do encourage people, don't bother which field you are in, but just keep in mind that no matter which career you have, you will always leverage that experiences to where you are ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I changed many times in terms of my career when I was about, in my 30s, really. In my 30s, that's when I made all of those changes. So here you are in one of those programs at Emory. Most of those kids, at 25, and here you're almost about 32, 33, you have to endure that just to go through all of that, really. That's what I'm saying, right?
Right.
I had a wife and a kid. Okay, my wife was in school. My kid, you have to at least put the kid in a daycare, and at the same time, you actually have to do whatever it takes just to survive. Wow. Can you believe someone with a master's degree driving a Domino's pizza? Driving a car to try and deliver pizzas because you want to put yourself through school. But those are things that go through. Even right now, when I explain to my kids what I went through, they say, "Daddy, I think that is not true," but that is true.
Well, Dr. Undie, I believe this is why we do this program, because you're on record saying these things now. So your kids cannot have a reason to doubt you anymore. And said, because they're going to listen to this and they're going to be like, wow, that was actually telling the truth. He wasn't joking about this.
No. I remember myself driving for Domino's Pizza, late evenings, just to make ends meet. Again, failure was not an option. You have to do whatever it takes to be successful. Wow. And that's what I did. And when I look back, I share these stories, with my kids just to really encourage them to, no matter where they find themselves, they know if you work hard and you are persistent, you will always be successful.
Very, very true. I don't really have much to add there because, for the benefit of the audience here, I just want to restate one thing that you said here about being persistent. Success doesn't come overnight. We have to work hard and find a way And I think one thing that you did was that you were able to visualize and look into the future, and you were able to figure out what it is that you have to do. Now, that is great for you because some people might not have that ability to look forward and make that change and determination to do certain things. So what is one advice that that you can give to people? I mean, I know people, I've heard different suggestions from the previous guests that we've had on the program about asking questions and ask questions, because from asking questions is sometimes where you get a lot of information that you may not get. And so how did you make a determination that the medical field at that time was the right way for you to go? Because you already had a doctorate degree in a different area, and then you basically make a about face. Now, were there some people that were part of this journey that you talked to that kind of gave you some direction, or you just did your self inquiry and make research and find out? How do others benefit from that? How do they do that?
Okay. Well, I always let the environment dictate which direction anyone wants to go. Again, I find myself whereby, yes, you had all these degrees, and yet you couldn't really use all of it. The economy was in a situation whereby people with business degree weren't really getting the jobs that they actually need to have.
Right.
At that time, the clinical sciences in the clinical area, hospitals and all of that, were actually having opportunity.
Right.
So I did my research within that time that I was laid off. So, well, if I were to go back to get another job with the business, ultimately I probably may get laid off again, right?
Right.
So to cut my losses, and I realized that in the clinical area, in hospitals, wherever, there were jobs. I said, something, let me change my direction over here. So that is how I went to, the hospital, careers, and ultimately, end up getting multiple jobs in that area. And I began to build on whatever I had. So the advice I'm going to give to anyone listening to this video is this. Don't be afraid of making changes. Age should not be a factor for you not to make that very change. Get a clinically based kind of career or a technically based skills. As an immigrant, you cannot go wrong with that. Because most Americans or most people born in this country usually don't have the fundamental skills to go into those areas. Now, the job may be tedious, the job may be difficult, but ultimately, if you can build yourself very strong in those areas, you can always rise up in that area. There are very, very few people like myself in where I do. Okay, many people don't even know about radiation oncology. Many people, when they hear about radiation, they think about radiation, X-ray, whatever. But there's a whole lot of careers in that area. So that is why people that I come across, I say, listen, you can find a successful career in radiologic sciences. There are almost about 5 different areas in that area. You can find a successful career in the clinical lab sciences, histology, molecular imaging, cytogenetics. There's a whole lot of those areas. So you need to shift away from, our mentality back in Nigeria, whereby you have to go in and have a bachelor's degree in biology, in chemistry, in physics. I have a lot of people with PhDs in all of those areas, and they cannot find jobs. And yet you have people who go into some of these other fields, which I've just mentioned. You go in, spend about 3 years or 4 years, you get yourself a well-sustained career that you can actually, be proud of. So that is the advice that I always share with people. I always do that when I have a group of people, So that is all the way to try and survive in America. We come in with this idea, well, yeah, I'm going back. When are you going back? Many of us came here in our 20s, We are now, in our early 60s. You said you are going, when are you going back? So you need to at least shift away from that perception that you are going back and wherever, and think of this place as your home and sustain yourself. I have some cousins that come over here that say, well, yeah, I think I'll just, go into business, try and do export and import. But how far can that get you? So the fundamental advice I'm going to give anyone, you need to get yourself a sound education. It may not be what you actually want, like a terminal degree, a doctorate, wherever, but you have careers that can actually give you a sound base to be able to make a very good living and start to think of this place as your home.
You're listening to the Nadvigators podcast, Navigating the American Dream with Bessie Simon. For more information on today's show, be sure to check out the show notes and resources at nadcast.com.
Nadvigators Nation, we have been talking to Dr. Undie for the last few minutes, 20 minutes, and he has given us a lot of insights and a lot of information on things that we should think about when we are here. And this is timely information that we all could use. And thank you so much for coming on the program again. Now, let me talk about this idea of not being afraid to make a change. I believe one of the ideas or concepts that we are exploring on this program is the power of a single story syndrome. And I'm not sure, it sounds like you were able to make a lot of changes. You were very forthcoming. You open up your mind to a lot of opportunities that help to define who you are today. But sometimes people come here, whether it's from Africa or Middle East or wherever, they find themselves in this concept that we call single story syndrome. I would like, because you touched on it a little bit when you were giving your advice about what people should do, what they could think about. Don't be afraid of a change for career. Age should not be a barrier for anything. You emphasize a lot on the value of education. So if somebody is stuck in a single story syndrome, how would you advise them to start to look outside that environment? So what I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with what I mean with single story. What I mean is with the single story concept is that sometimes people come to a particular place. We all come from certain place, and the first part of call, usually the first family, the first friend or first host family that you meet can really make or break you when you come here for the first time. A lot of times people come and they are told, well, everybody usually do this type of job. Everybody usually go to this type of career, and people just basically buy into that. Or people can hear things like, well, that job is not for people that look like me or look like you. So it's like people just kind of believe these kind of things. And that's what I call single story syndrome. And they buy into it and doesn't want to open up their minds about the environment and take advantage of what is there. So I would like you to speak a little bit about, did you experience any of that? Or have you had people that have experienced that and stuck in that situation? What can you tell them about this?
Okay. Mercy, I'm a trailblazer. What do I mean by that? I don't usually follow the path that other people do. I always like to observe, always like to explore things. Okay. I've had some friends who actually have, fallen victims to what you're actually saying. Okay. But again, failures that I've observed usually serve as my motivation, because I don't want to be like that. So I always tend to explore some things that are a little bit different, but I do my research before I even, take on that. Again, my most important resource that I've utilized over the years is education. What do I mean by that? It can be educational forum of about ideas. It can be information session, in a program. It can be information session that is offered by a school about something. But it's always good to listen to all of those things. But I can tell you right now, if you came into this country either from New York, or you came here from California, or you came here from Florida, a whole lot of immigrants in those areas are people not in educational area. So they definitely will steer you into, businesses kind of ideas or careers, okay? But if you came into maybe Midland America, where, people are not really, very much into that, some of these people maybe have had some background in educational area. That is the ones that they will actually encourage you to go into education. I can bet you cannot go wrong with getting into education in this country. I don't have a godfather. I've never had a godfather. But what has really helped me in this country is education. All right? People say, hey, listen, don't go into education because it's going to cost you money. They are student loans. You can take student loans and pay back when you are done. All of us took student loan. But the main thing is you take student loan to get a career that is worthwhile. Hopefully, when you get back, you can make the money and pay. I've paid all my student loan way back because I was able to get into a career whereby it was very, fulfilling. I made the money and paid all of that. So now you can still utilize the degree, the educational experience that you have had. So don't shy away from taking loans just to go to school, because ultimately it's going to help you to do what you need to do. However, if you just take money on student loan just to spend, on buying material things wherever, then I think you're going to pay the price eventually.
Yeah.
So just to answer what you're actually saying, I try to think outside the box. I don't usually go with what everyone is telling me. I use that as a resource or as a means to explore on that subject a little bit further, but I always want to find information that is validated. And that's how I've always been, and I think that's how I am.
Wow. I think the greatest takeaway from this particular advice right now is that, yes, we all love our family. We all love our host family. We enjoy being with them. When we first came, they provided that first safety net for us. But I think it's also important to do your homework, because the things that they tell you they didn't intend to make it a problem for you. It might not end up being the right information for you. So you have to have a way of really filter out all the information that you've received and see what is right for you, because
Absolutely.
What is right for the other person might not be what is right for you.
Absolutely.
So that's great. Well, let's turn our attention to something here, which is more of what everybody seems to experience when they come here. One of you touched on a few of them about when you came, you didn't realize how cold Wisconsin was. And you had to be exposed to that. And then when you came back on your own without the student loan or without the federal government sponsorship, the reality really set in at that time. And you just realized that, wow, I was actually doing well before, but there was no turning back, right?
Absolutely.
And these were all obstacles. So I would like you to tell us some of the obstacles beside those ones that you actually had to deal with, and how you overcame those obstacles.
You mean when I came back the second
when
time?
When you came
right?
back, yes.
All right. Well, I think some of the experiences I had, even when I got my doctoral degree, again, I was working for a corporation, Again, when I got laid off, that's when things got really bad. I think when I got laid off, I wasn't a resident. I was still an, international student. But I was working, with a work permit at that very time.
Right.
So now here you are being laid off. You're not a resident. You still have a work permit. And you know very well that, well, hey, listen, there's no guarantee that next job you will have, you will still be there.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, what really helped me, when I transitioned to the clinical-based area in the hospital setting, got my other postgraduate training, Emory did hire me. Emory was able to actually file for my residency. That is how I got my residency, and that's how things changed. Why did I did that? Because the area which I went was, you didn't really have a whole lot of trained Americans in that area. So they were looking for people to actually fill those positions. And given the fact that I was well trained, I was one, very few people, so they actually had to help me to get my residence. So that is how I got my residency. And just by, I would say, luck, I would say.
Wow. That is a major obstacle if you don't have your work permit here.
Yes.
It's a obstacle that it's really hard to explain. I have been exposed to a lot of people that have to go through a lot of things just to get by and be able to fend for themselves and their families. So I think the takeaway here is that there is more than one way of getting permanent residence in this country.
Yes.
Again, I don't want to elaborate on this because we will have another guest talk about this at some point. But there's more than one way of getting your permanent residency. So, and one of those ways is education, as you rightly said, and maybe finding that you could make some research and find some areas which they're still available today that a lot of people are not really going into that area.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
And that could be a way out to most people that are still struggling to get themselves situated when it comes to work permit and other things related to that. That's really interesting. Well, let's have some fun time before we go to the next set of interesting questions. Let's have some fun time here.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. So one of the things that when I first came here, one of the things that American always asked me was that, how did you get here? And I always reply by saying, well, I swam across the Atlantic Ocean. So that just gives you an idea how narrow that a lot of people that we meet here. This is our country now. This is where we live now.
Right.
So what is one of those, funny questions that you got asked, or some of the, very funny comments that people made to you that you could recall, and how did you react to that?
All right. I can tell you a vivid one. 1981, when I first got here, I took an English class. It's not really English. And, back from where we came from in Nigeria, you can write very well. I mean, that's how, you were able to get a scholarship in the first place. So I took a public speaking class. All right. So, of course, here you are. You just arrived in this country. You still have that accent, which we have been talking about. So you're already a little bit intimidated by speaking in front. And Wisconsin was almost all white people over there. All right. So that's the first time you're in class with maybe one or two students, everyone else in a class of about 35 students, everyone is white. So you're already intimidated in the first place. So now you were asked to give, talk about something that you know. So I decided to talk a little bit about Nigeria, to talk a little bit about the culture from Nigeria in that public speaking. So at the end, one of the students asked, well, so do they have skyscrapers in Nigeria? I say yes, we do have skyscrapers in Nigeria. I mean, we have a lot of other tall buildings in Nigeria. We have modern buildings in Nigeria. Keep in mind, in the 80s, that's when Nigeria was actually booming, right?
Yeah.
So you have foreign, expatriates coming over there, all of them doing very well. So I said, listen, do you know that they do have American embassy in Nigeria? And the buildings they actually have in Nigeria are not even as good as what you guys have over here where they're living. So they were surprised really because the perception of Nigeria, Africa as a whole, was what they actually saw in Tanzania. So they thought people were living in huts and all of that area. So they were profoundly surprised when they saw that or heard that there were actually modern buildings in that area. Do you know their perspective changed after that time? So this was a 14-week course. After that, I was well received, by my classmates, and I felt very, at ease with them.
Wow.
To me, that was cultural education. I would say, really,
That was it. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good one. Do you have any story about some of the things that you did or that you did not understand initially, and after you've stayed here for some time and you realize, wow, how did I not know that? And so we call this comical moment of your journey. I'll tell you one, which I think I shared it in one of the episodes. When I first came and I started driving, and I found that there was frontage road everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I kept wondering, how could they name every road frontage road? How would you know which of the frontage road you're going to? So later on, I realized that frontage road wasn't really a road. It was an access road. And I was like, wow, I should have known that, or somebody should have told me that. So I wonder if you have any of those comical moments that
yes.
you have.
Yes. When I moved to Michigan, I think after I left Wisconsin, of course, that was a bigger city. So a friend of mine said, okay, let's go to the mall. Okay. I said, no, he said, let's go to the, no, he said what? He said, let's go to the strip mall. So I said, what do you mean by strip mall? So then I realized there is a big mall. Then there's a lower version as a smaller mall, right? I thought strip mall was for like some of those adult clubs, whatever it is really. I never knew that. So I said, no, what is strip mall? So I think when they went, then I think as time went on, I realized strip mall is just, a stripped down version of a bigger mall.
Now that is interesting. So you actually thought he was going to take you to adults club.
Exactly.
Okay. Oh, well, thanks for sharing that. I think this is fun. Hello, Nadvigators. You have been listening to the navigating story of Dr. William Undie. Thank you, Dr. William Undie, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share your story with us. What a fascinating insights into what life was like for you at the very beginning of your American journey. You shared quite a bit of nuggets of knowledge, and we hope this will help others that may be at the very beginning stages of their own journey. One thing that is common to all of the navigators that we have been interviewing so far is this: behind every successful journey, there is always an equal number of failures, frustration, and challenges along the way. Your story truly demonstrated that and more. Wow, I cannot wait to hear the concluding portion of your journey. Navigators, be sure to tune in to the concluding part of Dr. William Undie's story in episode number 12, where he shares information on how you can get started to work in the field of radiology physics. Thank you for listening, and I hope you found some inspiration from the story of Dr. William Undie today to help you find success in your own navigating journey. But remember that you have your own unique navigating story. And here at the Navigators podcast, we believe that you should share your story with the world. I'll be honored to be your partner in sharing that unique story here on the Navigators podcast. I tell you every story, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's easy to get started. Send an email to me at guest@natcast.com to get the ball rolling. So for right now, I want you to share this episode with your friends and family or other navigators that you know. Okay? There are several avenues to share on the Navigators YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe while you are there. Also, leave a comment on the Facebook fan page or directly on our website, natcast.com. And since you like what you've heard, be sure to bookmark the Navigators podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We are available on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Spotify, or wherever you listen to our podcast. For now, I am Bassi Simon, your host and Captain Navigator, signing off until the next episode where I bring you another fascinating navigator story. Remember this, none of us is smarter than all of us, and don't forget to help people on your way up.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Nadvigators podcast, Navigating the American Dream with Bassi Simon. For more information about our stories, our guests, or how to get involved and share your navigating story, head over to our website at nadcast.com. That's NADCAST.com for more information. Continue the conversation on Facebook.com/Nadvigators. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or on your favorite podcast listening platform so others can find us and enjoy the show too.